challenging to try and balance and be in the market and also do all this other stuff. I will guide you on all things like deciding which city in Canada you want to live in.
Hello and welcome to Streetwise Economics Podcast. Brian Mukeswe, I have the privilege of knowing you, and welcome to this podcast.
Thank you for having me, Isaac, and look forward to sharing a little bit about myself and I guess to the extent that I can contribute to the podcast.
That's fantastic. And so today we are going to talk about your story, also, personal finance and investing, and also your remarkable career, because you're currently an engineer and also a data scientist. Now, Brian, tell us, who is Brian Mukeswe?
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
Yes.
I can just, I guess, do a brief intro of myself.
Yes.
So, yeah, Brian is an individual. So I'm born and raised in Uganda.
Yes.
I immigrated to Canada about 11 years ago.
Yes.
I came here as a student. I went to the University of British Columbia.
Yes.
So I got the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship, just like yourself, and then moved here, and I've been here for the past 10 years. So I finished school and I've worked here, and I can talk a bit more about my journey as we proceed. So I'm currently working as a data scientist, as you mentioned.
That's wonderful. And I remember, Brian, when I was still in Zimbabwe, you were the first cohort of the undergraduate scholars at the University of British Columbia who got the Mastercard scholarship. And I would, scroll and just, saw, you and your, the first cohort, the other folks from Africa who had come on the scholarship. And it was really inspiring to actually, read about your journey, your story. So to then actually come here and having you meet me at the airport was really, the highlight of my journey in here in Canada. So thank you so much for your kindness, Brian.
Yeah, always good to make a lifelong connection. This was how many years ago? This was 10 years ago.
Yes, I remember, when I landed at Vancouver International Airport, I was jet lagged, and yourself and Kuzi, you were waiting for me. Now, you currently work for, Mastercard, and you are also an entrepreneur in a way. I'm very curious, like how your education, transitioned, your transition. How was your experience? Because I understand a lot of people who do engineering, they say it's very challenging, and even went further to do masters in data science with the University of Edinburgh. So please, do you wanna walk us, through like what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, for my undergraduate, I chose to study electrical engineering, and then ended up specializing in power systems. So that's designing power lines in sort of the lay person language and power stations. I enjoyed that. It's something I was always curious about, how electricity works, because it powers everything we know around us. And I tapped into that curiosity to follow that career. I did that for 3 years. It was challenging, but I think, or even academically in school, I always gravitated towards like physics, math, and computation. So I enjoyed the challenge and I enjoyed learning. So I think that allowed me to get through it, and sort of taught me that I think no matter how challenging something is, find something you're really interested in. And I think that passion compensates for whatever extra hours you have to put in and the hard work, because you find that extra gratification from doing it. I did that for about 3 years. After graduating from school, I worked in a consulting firm, a small consulting firm, doing electrical power system designs. And in that process, I actually discovered that I enjoyed something even more, which was the data analysis part of it. So like automating processes and just creating efficiency and doing deeper analysis, a lot more than the more traditional engineering aspect of it.
Yes.
So that is what motivated me to explore data science. And at the time, this was like 2018.
Yes.
Things like AI they were talked about, but they were not as much in the mainstream as they are right now.
Yes.
But data science was still a career that, a lot of people talked about. A lot of people didn't know much about it. It was
Yes.
still a mystery. So I did some research and, learned about this career, and it had all these things that I thought I enjoyed.
Yes.
It had a good mix of programming, a good mix of like business, because I always had an entrepreneur and business leaning. So
Yes.
even when I did my undergraduate in electrical engineering, I actually did a minor in commerce. So I took like business classes, like in marketing, organizational behavior, accounting, and I took an entrepreneurship class. So I always tried to balance between the technical side and the business side. So I didn't find myself leaning too much on one or
Yes.
the other. So I saw data science as a good opportunity to, be able to use like my technical skills to
Yes.
have direct business impact. And I think that really drove me to go full on in that career. So I did a career pivot at the time.
Yes.
So I quit my engineering job,
Yes.
where I'd been working for over 3 years, to an entry-level data analyst job.
Yes.
So that was a big risk at the time, because this was like a bit of a pay cut,
Yes.
going a bit, giving away my 3 years of seniority in the engineering profession.
Yes.
But I'd gotten to a point whereby I realized that just keeping going on this path just because of what I've been doing
Yes.
was not sustainable,
Yes.
and I wouldn't be as successful and wouldn't thrive as much as I wanted to. So doing that pivot was really what I needed. So in addition to switching to a data analyst role, I started my master's in data science. So this was an online master's. I was doing it
Yes.
online while working in this job as a data analyst. This was with the city of Vancouver. So I think that journey, being able to learn things in class and applying them in the real world at the same time,
Yes.
it gave me a very different perspective than what I had when I was doing, for example, my undergrad.
Yes.
Because in undergrad, it was mostly theoretical, but now I would, learn things in class and come and apply them directly and
Yes.
see how that gave me an edge. And then shortly after I graduated, that's when I got my current role at Mastercard.
Yes.
So this was in a whole new field that I didn't know about, fraud detection.
Yes.
And it was with a much larger organization.
Yes.
And one of the things that drew me to this position was the opportunity to learn and to work with things at a very global scale.
Yes.
So I think I've learned a lot over the past 3 years,
Yes.
coming 3.5 years now, actually.
Yes.
Worked across different geographies, different products, different problem sets,
Yes.
and I continue to learn and grow. And that has also inspired me to pursue my entrepreneurial journey
Yes.
on the side, which is Binta Financial, which you mentioned. And I can talk a bit more about that later. But I hope that answers your question and gives you a bit more context about my journey so far.
It is very remarkable, and apart from being your close friend, I think I'm privileged to know you at that level. It's very inspiring, and it shows that it is through education and hard work it is possible, no matter where you start from. And also the fact that in addition to working on such a highly demanding role, you still studied, for a master's degree. So there's really no excuse, for not upgrading ourselves. That's another key takeaway. Now, in this next chapter of this podcast, let's talk a little bit more about personal finance and investing. So you and I, we talk about, personal finance, and we sometimes trade together in the stock market. Do you wanna share, like, what, like, of course, this is not, financial or investment advice. What are the
Mm.
strategies that you use? I know you trade options, but also let's start off by your investment strategy for the long term. What sort of things do you invest in?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So maybe I can talk about, yeah, my exposure to like investment and the
Yeah,
stock market and all of that.
yeah,
So, I mean, I moved here 10 years ago and I
yeah,
didn't really know much about the stock market. I didn't know anything about it.
yeah,
I knew that, there were big companies, but I didn't know how they were financed or anything of that.
yes,
And then as I was in school, I told you I did some business classes. I started to learn a bit about finance and just at a conceptual level.
yes,
And then I started working in a corporation and learned about like shares, how you can own shares in the company. And
yes,
then I think from there, through like a conversation with people like yourself,
yeah,
I started to broaden my knowledge of the stock market and how you can, trade shares. But even up to that point, I didn't really know exactly how you can access actually like the stock market. I knew about it. I knew people bought shares, but I
yeah,
didn't know how you can even buy shares. I didn't know about like brokerages or how to create an account with any of these farms or apps and all of that.
yeah,
And I remember going to the bank and asking them about this, but like it wasn't their priority really. They were like, just buy some mutual funds. Like,
they,
and I think it's because the banks, of course, are prioritizing people who have real money to invest, right? Not the average customer. So I think it was in the pandemic,
yeah,
like many people, I think a lot of people like really got serious into buying stock and all of that in the pandemic because we have time on our hands.
yes,
And I think after the Robin Hood scenario that really opened up people's eyes and also Wealth Simple.
yes,
So I remember I created a Wealth Simple account,
yes,
and then suddenly it was very easy to like buy shares in any company, right?
mhm,
And initially I was really excited about that. And I remember like starting to just use any like some of the extra cash I had around to buy shares.
yes,
And then of course, I realized how volatile it was because in one moment you put in, $500 and then it's gone, right?
yeah,
Or it could also grow, but I realized that okay, maybe this is something that requires some skill, like
yes,
just go in and do it. But at the time, like I mentioned earlier, the banks had told me to like buy some mutual funds,
yes,
so I'd set up some accounts where like I would put a certain amount of my paycheck. So it
yes,
would just go into this mutual fund.
yes,
And as I was here playing around the stock market, I actually noticed that, this automated process is like, it just keeps growing, right?
yeah,
It's actually
without
doing
you
better
being
than any of this
directly
that I was
involved.
doing. Yeah. So I realized that okay, maybe putting because also I realized how addictive it was, like just putting money in, and I'm constantly watching. I
Yes,
have to look at the news all the time. When the stock drops, I'm anxious.
yes,
So like all of that kind of took it away from me, and I was like, okay, maybe this is not a healthy thing to keep doing. I'll
yes,
just put it in index funds and mutual funds and let the money keep growing there. But then I think recently, actually, yourself, we kept having some conversations about like investment strategies, the long-term investment strategies, and all of that. And then I'd always heard about day trading as a thing people do.
yeah,
But again, I didn't know much about it.
yeah,
I always imagined it as, people buy some stock and then hope it goes up and they sell and they arbitrage and all of that. So I
yeah,
knew about it in principle, but not really what it actually takes to do it.
yes,
And I remember having a conversation with you, and you had mentioned that uh, it's something you had learned about in a course you took,
yeah,
and you learned about options.
Yes.
So again, I'd heard about options, but I wasn't too conversant with it.
Yes.
So I was curious. I remember, yeah, I took a course with you that kind of gave me some introduction about what options are.
That's trading.
Yeah, but then I think I always want to, especially also from my experience in the pandemic, I
Yes.
always want to get into something with like from a place of knowledge. So
Yes.
what I did was just take a more academic.
Dear viewer, thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in. But did you know that only 10% of all the people who watch this podcast are subscribed? So if you're one of those people who are not subscribed, I highly encourage you to subscribe so that you can get notification when I post new podcast and other content on personal finance and investing. In return, I promise you one thing. I will bring in guests from different parts of the world who have different experiences in personal finance, investing, and from different career walks. Now, the goal is to inspire you and to have these people in conversation with me share their experiences so that we can both learn from each other. If you have any questions, you can also put them on the comments so that we can respond to your comments. I hope you enjoy this episode. Have a wonderful time and may the markets be with you.
A more academic interest into this. So I got a very I researched and got like a textbook, like a large volume book that talks about options. And I was like, if I put my money into this, I want to like learn all about this like in a very thorough way.
Yes.
So I remember doing some reading and this book, it was called Options as a Strategic Investment. It's a really good book. If you're curious about learning about options, I encourage you to read it, anyone that's listening. It's more of like a fundamentals. It's not trying to convince you to invest or anything. It's sort of like a textbook. You go to class and they teach you this is what options are.
Yes.
These are the risks involved. These are all the variables.
Agreed.
And I found it very enlightening.
Yes.
And after reading that book, I was like, you know what? I want to try out options trading.
That is
So
fun.
I went and opened up an account with Interactive Brokers,
Yeah.
set it up, and then funded it, and then started speculating on some options.
Yes.
And given that I'm in the tech space, I focused on tech stocks. Given they're also very popularly traded,
Yes.
and I mean, I found myself making some good money. I remember some of the initial days I was trading Apple options and
Yes.
they were playing out in my favor. But
Yeah.
then I realized the way I was going about it wasn't really very sustainable in the long run.
You're not taking
Because,
profit.
of course, when you're taking bigger risks and you're not hedging your risks, you
Yes.
can gain a lot, but also you can lose a lot.
Yes.
So I remember making like a lot of money and then losing a significant chunk of it. And
Yeah.
then realizing that, okay, maybe this is not sustainable.
Yes.
Even if you're coming out on top, like the emotional toll of being on that
Yes.
roller coaster is not very sustainable.
Yeah.
So I just kept, learning more about it. And then I think right now I still have an account and I do get into trading these options once in a while.
Yeah.
But I found that it's a big challenge for me, particularly because uh, I have a full-time job, I have a business that I'm running, and the options markets open during the workday. So yeah, so in my ideal world, like I would probably do more of this trading if I had the time.
Yes.
So if I wasn't working full time, if I was on vacation, I would spend the time and actually, plan out my trades and do them. But that's the main hindrance I'm finding right now.
Yes.
So as work has gotten busy and I had some vacation recently traveling, I've scaled back a little bit. I've not been doing it as much. I
Yeah.
think when I have some downtime later on in the year, maybe I'll get back into it. But yeah, that's been my journey with trading. I think
Yeah.
my advice and takeaway is that, like anything, it's a skill. That people do this full time.
Yes.
A lot of people are tempted to do it part time, but then if you get into something like that and you're competing with people who are skilled at doing it, chances of you winning are probably low. It's kind of like trying to go do surgery as a doctor without training as a doctor. You might survive, you might save a patient, but you probably kill very many. So
Yes.
that's how
Yes.
I'm looking at it.
Fantastic. It's a very interesting story, and you have, put it aptly because, for me, fortunately, that's what I do full time. Like I trade and also, invest for the long term. So most of the time I'm doing research. Like today, I was just sitting, I'm reading this book, right? Uh,
Mm,
the Dantal Investor. Every time I'm reading, I'm, planning my trades and stuff like that. But it's very interesting that most of the time I'm doing nothing in the market. Okay.
mm,
And when I do so, like I approach it from a place of understanding exactly what I want to do, where I want to get in, and where I want to get out. Of course, I sometimes have to adjust with the changing market conditions, right? But the greatest thing that I have realized is like when I'm trading, if I see 10% profit, I take it off the table, right?
mm,
That's good enough, right? And I take part of it, and most likely, just consider that to be a success because, like you said, you wanna be, like I wanna move on to other things,
mm,
and then for my long-term portfolio, then I have to really understand that. And like you said, index funds, basically you're buying, a fund that is a basket of, different securities. It could be gold, companies that are producing gold or investing in gold, or, stocks, that is equities, or I don't do cryptocurrency because I'm not really knowledgeable on it,
mm,
to the extent that I'm comfortable. The key thing is to take up low risk, moves, because a lot of people, they like speculating and then they lose money. That's the last thing that I want to do. Now,
mm.
having said that, I've also seen that a lot of wealth can be built in the stock market, but also it can be lost. So you must be very, very careful if you consider taking that route. Now, moving on to the last segment of about your career. Now, you talked about the Financial. I know you're doing remarkable work, and it's something that is very interesting. Do you want to share a little bit more about what it is and how you want to support new immigrants in your venture?
Yeah, I can talk about Binta. So, Binta is a company that I'm co-founding with my co-founder called Pascal.
Yes,
So, initially, he came up with the idea and brought me on board.
yes,
And essentially, what Binta is a fintech. We're a technology company,
yes,
and our goal is to empower newcomers to Canada, to North America in general,
yes,
because we've through our lived experiences as immigrants at some point, and we know many friends, family that are immigrants. Uh, we saw a gap in the financial system. So when someone comes to Canada, no matter who they've been in their home country, they've
yes,
been paying their bills, they've been working. When they land here, all that is forgotten.
yes,
So if they want to rent a house, for example, the
yeah.
landlord is going to ask you for landlord reference. They're going to ask you, do you have a job?
In
They're going to
Canada,
ask for your credit file, and
yes,
you don't have any of those things on the first day you land here, but you need somewhere to live.
yes,
So how do you navigate that?
yes,
And once you're here, you need to also learn about like how credit works, because it doesn't work the same in many other places.
yes,
You need to also learn about even the basic things like, where do I go to rent a house? Like, what's the best neighborhood based on your situation?
yes,
And then, so the idea came up to really build a financial like a technology solution to this problem.
yes,
So starting, we have a number of products
yes,
that are targeted towards solving this problem. So the first product we have is in terms of that journey is migrating people's financial information over from their home country. So your financial records in terms of your credit,
Yes.
in terms of your historical transactions, your employment history, we
Yes.
bring it and make you visible.
Yes.
So visible to employers, to lenders. If you're trying to get a car,
Yes.
we allow you to be visible
Yes.
credit-wise.
Yes.
The other one is to help you, now once you're settled in, build your history.
Yes.
So that's where our rent reporting product comes in.
Yes.
So when you pay your rent, which is something everyone does every month,
Yes.
unlike someone who's paying a mortgage,
Yeah.
when someone's paying a mortgage right now, all those payments get recorded on their credit file. But
Yes.
those who are paying rent, those payments do not get recorded at all.
Yes.
So we make it such that when you make your rent payment, that goes on your credit file, which
Yes.
makes it better for you when you're taking other credit in future.
Yes.
When you're seeking to find a new place to stay, you can show landlords your track record of on-time payments. So again, we facilitate that. And we have a number of other products like a rental guarantee program.
Yes.
One thing we've seen for newcomers is when you come to Canada and you're trying to find a place to rent
Yes.
and you don't have a job, you don't have a landlord reference.
Yes.
One thing that landlords may ask for is a guarantor. So
Yes.
they'll tell you, can you find someone whose name will go on the lease in case you default? That person is on the hook for it.
Yes.
If you don't know anyone and you're new to Canada, you also do not have a guarantor.
Yes.
So the other option is they'll ask you to put a deposit down of like, say, 6 months rent.
Yes.
You live in Vancouver, imagine 6 months rent and you're a newcomer without a job and you have to put all this cash down.
Yeah.
That's a very huge burden.
Yes.
So we have a rental guarantee program whereby you can come to Binta and Binta can be your guarantor, or it can allow you to have the rental guarantee product that landlords will accept and allow you to rent. So those are some examples in
Yes.
how we're doing it. But the most exciting one, which is the product we're about to launch,
Yes.
we already have it out there so I can speak about it, is our AI product. So we have Binta AI, which is an artificial intelligence. Right now we're in the age of AI.
Yes.
It's a digital assistant that will be your personal guide
Yes.
in that whole journey, right from when you decide that you're coming to Canada and you're in your home country.
Yes.
You'll be able to talk with this AI and they are deciding which place to live when you arrive, what
Yes.
activities to engage in, how do you find a job, how do you build a community, how do you open a bank account. Because if you don't know anyone, you need someone to ask, and the information can be very overwhelming.
Yes.
But this AI will be able to personalize it to you,
Yes.
and you'll be able to chat with it and it will learn your journey and come alongside you. So that's the exciting product we're about to we've launched. We're about you'll see it on our channels in the next few days. So keep an eye out. So that's Binta for you, and I'm the CTO of Binta.
Yes.
My colleague is the CEO, and we have a number of employees helping us build this enterprise. So we're really excited, and we'll be sharing more as it becomes available.
Congratulations on those milestones, Brian. And I think as we wrap up, I'm curious to hear from you. Are there key highlights of your career or your, financial journey that you would want to just share to say, look, if maybe there's someone in any part of the world who might want to explore life the way that we have done, you found it helpful?
Yeah, I think key highlights, I already mentioned one,
Yeah.
which was my career pivot
Yes.
from engineering to data science.
Yes.
Um, I want to highlight that because I always see it as a turning point for me, because I felt like up until that point, I was taking my career on autopilot.
Yes.
And by that, I mean I had studied this thing, which I chose as an 18-year-old going into college,
Yes.
right? Not knowing much about what options were available to me.
Yes.
And I was doing this career because this is what I studied. So I just do that because the first job I got was in that area.
Yes.
And then I realized that I was fortunate enough to be in an economy that allows me to be intentional in choosing what I want to do.
Yes.
So I exercise that privilege by sitting down and reflecting on, okay, based on all the opportunities that are available, what do I really want to do? What do I enjoy? And what do I see opportunity for growth in? And then I was able to intentionally choose that. So I encourage anyone listening to be intentional in choosing their career,
Yes.
because you spend most of your productive time doing this. So you want to do something that you enjoy and you find meaningfulness in, because that's the one that has the most likelihood for you to excel. So I would say that was a huge turning point for me that I want to highlight for anyone listening. And then the other one is don't be afraid to take risks. If you really feel like something is worth betting on, then bet on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I think I couldn't agree with you more on those. And is there any parting shot that you'd want to share with the audience about, your life experiences?
Yeah, I would say relationships are important.
Yes.
When you go through life, you're going to meet all sorts of people along the way. I would say you don't know what the person you're meeting today, what what you will need from them, what they'll need from you in the future, but what that encounter might lead to, because a lot of times, we kind of go through life on autopilot. But being intentional in building relationships and maintaining relationships is important. I say that because, for example, like my co-founder,
Yes.
the reason why he reached out to me to to start this company with him, date stretches as far back as a random event in university in 2015,
Yes.
where I was hosting an African student event,
Yes.
and we happened to strike up a conversation. And from that conversation, we kept in touch. We didn't work together, we didn't have classes together. We connected on LinkedIn and just kind of kept tabs of each other, and met up 5 years later. But uh, the reason why we were able to keep that was because in that moment when we were talking, we had a genuine conversation, a genuine connection.
Now.
It was, in the midst of an event, for example, you're at an event, it's very easy to have, like, just kind of be on autopilot, talk to people. But if focus in the moment on the relationship you're building and make it meaningful, have meaningful conversation, and also be intentional in following up and checking in on people, I think it will make a big difference, because it has for me. That's just one example, but with many relationships in my life, even like with you, Isaac, I think we do keep in touch quite a bit.
Yeah.
And being intentional in nurturing those relationships has opened up many opportunities for me. So that's one other thing I would advise people.
Yeah, networking and just being intentional is a key to being successful. So thank you so much for the privilege of your time. I acknowledge that you are super busy, so I don't take this lightly. And to the audience, thank you so much for tuning in to yet another episode. I'm looking forward to hearing your comments, and I also share some information of Binta Financial in case you want to check out what Brian and his team they are doing. I'm going to put it on the comment section. And may the markets be with you, and see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. I started this podcast with the goal to share insights on personal finance, investing, and career insights. But did you know that out of all the people who tune in on this podcast, and by the way, I appreciate you, all of you, only 10% are subscribed. So if you are one of those people who are not subscribed, I highly encourage you to subscribe, so that when I post content in the future, you get notification, and also this podcast can grow. In return, I will bring in guests from different parts of the world who are successful in their own rights. The goal is to share their personal experiences on personal finance, investing, and also career insights. That way we can also learn from each other through our conversations. I hope you enjoy yet another podcast at Streetwise Economics. Have a wonderful time and may the markets be with you. Thank you again, dear viewer.
will guide you on all things like deciding which city in Canada do you want to live in.